Jean, Wendy, thanks for joining us. You cannot see my face because I'm in my apartment in Queens. We lost power where I live on the North Fork, so my family and I are camping out with air conditioning, which we need very badly. So I'm sorry you can't see, or maybe you're not sorry you can't see my face. I don't know. I got two nice looking people to interview here, and here's the book cover. And what's really nice about this book cover is it's a beautifully designed cover. Wendy, Jean, did one of you design this?
Actually, our publisher did, the editorial team on the publishing side. Our publisher is Amons out of Germany. And I love that it has kind of an Art Deco bathing kind of feel. So it's a slightly vintage and yet somehow it feels modern.
Well, it really says the Hamptons. The Hamptons are all about the beaches, but there's a bonus with this book. And if everybody looks down at the lower right-hand corner, it includes the North Fork, and that's a big bonus. And I wouldn't say it's just a sidebar. I think structurally, it's a serious part of your book, is it not?
Absolutely, Tom. I mean, from day one, I wanted to make sure we included the North Fork. I think people get into their own forks and they don't cross-pollinate. And I think it's so exciting to explore the other areas. They're similar and different. They have their own identities. And it was very important from day one for me to include the North Fork. So I think we have about 15 places or so in the North Fork, and they're all winners. Very excited about those.
So how did you do the research for this?
Well, what we did is we tried to have equal places, divided equally through the various cities and villages. So there's a geographical sort of democracy, as it were. And then we split it up into themes like nature walks, tiny little historic sites, museums, shops that have been around forever, iconic restaurants, experiences. We tried to evenly distribute between those categories and between the geography as well.
So as a biforker, I used to think I was an expert about this, but I lived in Southampton for 6 years and now 7 years on the North Fork, and you really just knocked it out of the ballpark. It's amazing. So Jean, how did you and Wendy meet?
Through the World Wide Web. She contacted me through my website, and she told me about this great project that she was working on and that she was interested in having me as the photographer. And
so Wendy, you went photography shopping online?
I absolutely went photography shopping. It was very important for me to have someone from the area. I really wanted to find someone who was from here and who had a fantastic eye. And I could tell from Jean's website, I mean, you can immediately tell, I mean, I'm an art history person, you can immediately tell who just has that eye, and Jean had the eye. So we contacted her and it worked out perfectly, and it's been a delight to have her because she's very much an inside person. She's pointed out things to me, I've learned things through her, and I was thrilled to find out that a lot of the places we've covered, she didn't even know about.
Wow,
it was
that's great.
Unbelievable.
So let's go to the first slide, Connor. There's proof in the pudding right there. I know myself, this is Conscience Point. This is one of 4 Southampton History Museum properties that we manage. It's a 5-acre marshland out on North Sea Harbor. And I know from experience, after 14 years of trying to take a photograph of this place, this is stunning. Jean, tell me how you did it.
It was just a kind of a combination of going there a couple different times at different times of the day and walking around, just kind of taking everything in and, obviously shooting the entire time. And, I remember one day it was around, I think 6, 7 o'clock, I showed up and I had already taken a couple of different pictures and I just stepped out of my car and I just kind of went like, huh. I just kind of went,
That was the one. So evening light, that's what makes it so special. I see that now.
Golden hour. It's like
golden hour. Wendy, how hard was this for you to find?
Well, Tom, you told me about it, but it was hard for me to, I kept going to the wrong spot. But
Yeah.
Tom, what I love about Conscious Point is you can stand there, and this is where the first settlers came, the colonists came in 1640 from Massachusetts, and you can literally feel what perhaps it felt like when you stand at the boulder that marks the spot. The same grasses, the same plants. So it's sort of, to me, really an escape And I have a visceral feeling standing there that you kind of understand where all of this sort of began, the colonization of the East End. Do you get that feeling too?
Well, I always think of the Paleo Indians who come to Long Island, and
Yeah.
this is one end of a well-marked Indian trade route going from the Atlantic Ocean near Gin Lane in Southampton, and this is the other end point that I know was trade traffic during colonial times and earlier with the Shinnecock tribe and before the Shinnecock Paleo Indians. So this has an ancient history to me. And several winter camps have been found around the North Sea Harbor. There's been archaeological digs in a few spots, so we know that, it was it's been used for 12,000 years. So that's what I think about when I think of this.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. And no one's ever there when you're there. You kind of have it to yourself. And it's one of those secret little spots that I was just so delighted to be able to write about.
We have a volunteer that lives next door, and they said since March, since COVID hit, it's tripled visitations. There's more and more people looking for things to do outside, and this is a really sweet place to go to. It's quiet, it's reflective. There's a monument to the pioneers that you mentioned in 1640 at the end of the trail, but it's a thoughtful place, and please pick up your dog doo-doo when you visit.
Oh, yeah.
There's if you go off, yes, right. So, but please stay on the trail. There's poison ivy around there, and I know that from experience. So,
Oh,
it's beautiful, but like anything beautiful, there's a little bit of harm in beauty. So it can be a bit prickly. How about the next one, Connor? I don't even know what this is. I know it's Art Village, but tell me about it.
so the Art Village is just west of downtown Southampton. And this is actually, it's a cement gutter for the rain. And they've sort of set stones into beach stones in this gorgeous sort of gutter. So what the Art Village is back in the 1890s, William Merritt Chase, well-known painter, set up the first en plein air, the first outdoor painting school in America. So if you wanted to paint like the French Impressionists, this was the place to come. And they lived in this little enclave. The streets are named like Ochre Lane, Studio Lane, very atmospheric. And there's still to this day, all privately owned, tiny little cottages where you get a glimpse of what it looked like back then, with beautiful little garden gates, sort of the windows that sort of are a diamond pattern, the stone chimneys. So you can drive around this area and imagine what it was like when a lot of the amateur and professional artists lived there during the summer and were learning to paint with William Merritt Chase. I mean, it's extraordinary and very forgotten, but it really kind of started the whole idea of the East End being a place where artists would collect, to me, which is extraordinary.
Gene, I love the fact that you were in one of the most significant architectural neighborhoods that we have out on the East End, and you picked the gutter. Why did you pick the gutter?
Well, when Wendy told me about the Art Village, and she had mentioned the gutters, she mentioned certain like little details that she had noticed. So of course, I just naturally tried to find those details myself. And just with the homes, we had a little bit of a issue. You know, they're private. We want to keep them private for the people who own them, who live in them. So the gutter kind of just became where my mind went to the gutter. And,
it shows you both. It shows you both got out of your cars and actually looked. I have never seen this before, and I'm ashamed to say that I'd look at the architecture because it's a beautiful neighborhood, but this is a surprise. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's just a little detail. Like that's what we hope to bring through the book. Like show you little details that you might have missed before.
It looks fairly well preserved. It looks like it's been maintained somewhat because it's old now.
It's very handmade. I love that it feels very hands-on, literally handmade. I mean, you'll see this nowhere else on the East End. And I love that about it. Like, you're in the Art Village when you see this, to me.
It looks like a Stanford White idea to me. He used a lot of stonework in some of his other houses. So let's go on to the next one, please. What the heck is that?
You don't recognize the stairway, Tom?
No.
That's the Southampton Library.
Now I do.
Yeah,
now I do. Well, see, I'm on my way to a lecture. I'm on my way to see Penny Wright. I've got my head looking at the steps so I don't fall. I've never seen it. So that's such a beautiful shot.
Well, I think to me that the Rogers Memorial Library is just off downtown Southampton, and it looks like a gorgeous historic beach cottage with the shingles on the side and the turret. And when you drive up, there's a rose garden with a white gazebo and these sort of lattice edges. I mean, it's this extraordinary experience. You have no idea you're at a library, and yet it's an extraordinary library. The centerpiece of the library is a fireplace with these reading chairs all around it. But I specifically fell in love with the Long Island collection. Down in the basement, you have to have a librarian let you in because it's a locked room. So these aren't books and documents that sort of distribute, but you can read them there. And I sort of lost my mind with this ship's log, an actual ship's log from the early 1800s of a whaling voyage from Sag Harbor all the way to Brazil. And it's these ruffled pages and this exquisitely beautiful cursive script that's describing this journey that would be months and months and months on end, day by day. So there's this dichotomy of holding this in your hand, this document, and these perilous journeys on the sea, and yet this gorgeous logbook. It just struck a chord with me, and I thought, what an extraordinary find, this little Long Island collection. I loved every minute of being there.
Well, thanks for bringing that to light. It needs to be used more. It's a wonderful resource for anybody that's interested in the history of the Hamptons, and everybody has lots of time now, so everybody should go see this.
That's so
Thank
true.
you. Next one. Oh, where's this?
Oh.
As if I didn't know. I had a great day with Jean because Jean talks really fast, and like a lot of people in publicity and media that I meet, they want to come in and go out, just immediately. They want one shot, then they're gone. Jean spent, I don't know how many hours, it probably was only 40 minutes, but I just never saw somebody take 1,000 photographs to get the perfect one. And really, you've got the light. It looks like I lit the candles for you.
I know. Well, that was the best part. Like, I got like a tour. You gave me all the details and all the history of everything. I mean, I'm a huge American history buff, so I was just like, yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I have to take a picture. That's what I'm here for.
We should point out that this is the Halsey House in Southampton.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Tom, maybe.
Oh, yes, that.
We forgot to say that. So just in case people don't recognize that table. And I think it was like 1683 where the colonists lived, and you can understand in a very visceral way what it was like. And Tom, I love the tour that you gave of me. It was one of my best days in researching the book, where you taught me about how they brush their teeth.
Oh, right.
Remember?
So crazy.
So how do they do that?
People, now you're turning it back on me. I'm being interviewed. In colonial times, people would, they brush their teeth every day, they bathe, they do everything we do today, but they did it in a different style. They used available materials. So you would go out to your backyard, front yard, grab a fresh twig, break it off, peel back the bark on a little tiny thing, go to a wash tub. You would have a bowl with water in it, and then you would blacken a piece of glass, take the charcoal off the glass, and you would rub charcoal on your teeth and scrub it with this raw twig. And I think there's a toothpaste out now that has charcoal in it. So that idea has come back.
See, I never forgot that. These are the things you teach us. I never forgot that. And
Well,
every time to this day I drive by, I think of that.
Well, don't get me into excrements, because that's a whole other topic. That's another lecture.
I know, we did talk about that, but that's another lecture.
Yeah. So next one. This is the Pellatro Silver Shop. I will start out. I won't embarrass myself by saying what is this? The Pellatro Silver Shop is on Main Street, right next to the Chamber of Commerce. Everybody that's listening has passed it 1,000 times. Looks like a little one-room shop, and it was built in 1683, and it is 1686. It is the oldest continuously open trade shop in the Americas.
Wow.
I would love to say the Western Hemisphere, but that includes England, and there's a family-owned butcher shop in Oxford, England, that is older. So I'm giving all my money to vegans in England, so that thing will go out of business. Jean, why did you focus on this?
Well, I mean, there are so many things to photograph in the shop. It's just, I mean, there's the jewelry that they're selling there now, and then there's the kiln where, I mean, generations of smiths, I guess, just worked on their craft. And then they've got this little cabinet with all like these just like tiny little artifacts and like these precious little things that like they look beautiful for just like a regular little tidbit. And then you realize that it was made in 1780 or 1760, I think that 1760, and it's still alive, it's still around. Like, that's just, it was mind-blowing to me. So I really wanted to focus in on that it survived, just like the building and just like the craft and all that.
There's nothing like handmade objects. I mean, if you look closely at the small irregularities of the curve of the handle and the lip of the pitcher, it's just beautiful. It was made by hand and using a hammer and a and a forge. So it's silver. It's solid silver. So we're lucky
and
to
there's
have.
a silversmith working there today, Eric, who's a modern day silversmith. He makes jewelry and necklaces. So you can go in there, you can understand commerce on this level historically, like the original silversmiths who worked there. And then today it's still happening today. I mean, Southampton History Museum runs this little lovely place. And so this tradition is being carried on. And I think Eric even gives jewelry classes there sometimes, so people can really sort of immerse themselves in this idea of silversmithing. Wonderful.
Thanks for mentioning that. Eric is continuing the handmade tradition.
Yes.
What's next? Oh, I have been to the Custer Observatory, but have never been inside the telescope where it is. Tell us about that.
Well, this is in Southold, and the reason they located this in Southold in 1939 is because apparently it has some of the darkest skies on the East End. So I think of the Custer Observatory as sort of like an old secret men's science club. Of course, it's open to everyone nowadays, but back in the day when it was established, it was a lot of amateur and some professional astronomers who had this love of the stars. So they created a place to sort of inundate themselves and study the stars. And anyone can go there on a Saturday night, and you climb these kind of steep wooden stairs up to the top where there's this metal dome that magically opens to the sky with this extraordinary telescope that you can turn 360 degrees. And Saturn and Pluto and all the stars are so close, you almost feel like you could touch them. It's a magnificent experience. But my favorite thing is that every year they have a star fest. Once a year, they all come and they pitch their tents on the grounds, and they start the evening with, I think, what's called the astronomer's drinking song. They all sing this song. So how could you not love this?
That's great. So Jean, you had to go there at midnight to take this photo?
I don't think it was that late, but I think it was actually a little earlier. I mean, it was around 8 o'clock. It was right before the moon was rising, so the sky was still pretty dark, and it was a little cold. I think I went in October, November, so you're all bundled up, and you climb these steep stairs, and you're like, where are we going? And then it just literally, it's like the sky opens up, and you're just faced with the cosmos, and that was one of the most fun experiences I had shooting for this book.
It's a very powerful photograph, Jean.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I know it'll be really great this weekend. Hopefully, the Perseids are actually.
Oh yeah, right. I read about that.
So
okay, what's next? The Bug Lighthouse. Tell me about it.
Yes, so the East End Seaport Museum in Greenport, they do a lighthouse tour. Oh my gosh, this was one of the best experiences in researching the book. And you see about 5 or 6 different lighthouses, and this is like the jewel in the crown of the lighthouses on the North Fork. Bug Lighthouse, they called it that because when they first built it, the stilts that it's built on from a distance, it looked like a water bug with its tall legs. This lighthouse actually burned to the ground in the 60s. I think it was vandalism. And they rebuilt it in the 1990s and then put it back where it belongs. So this is one of the jewels on this lighthouse tour that you can take. And they have a wonderful man who's an MC who talks about all of the various lighthouses. I think his father was one of the lighthouse keepers. So it's very up close and personal. And then you also get to see the lighthouse on Plum Island that's super haunted. So it's like you can't really get up close to Plum Island because it's owned by the government and it's off limit to visitors. But on this lighthouse tour, you can actually get up close and see it. So it's amazing, Tom. Have you taken the tour?
No, I take the ferry a lot.
Yeah.
Because I have relatives to
That's
New
true.
England, so it's but something I need to do. That's amazing. Jean, did you swim out there or did you go on the cruise?
No, I went on a cruise, and it was perfect. They drove us right up to the side, and I was like, there it is. Click.
But you didn't go ashore, right? You're still this is taken from the boat or?
This was the sheet. Yeah, this shot was taken from the boat. But you do, like on the cruise I went on, you did get to go on the land, I guess you want to call it. We were able to go inside the lighthouse and explore that. We weren't able to go up to the top, but I mean, we were in the entire building and we get to walk all the way around, and it was really cool.
Wow, that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
next one, Connor. I don't know. Where are we?
Tom, this is the Lieber collection. It's in East Hampton, kind of in the Springs area. So Judith Lieber, she and her husband, Gerson Lieber, met in World War II in Europe. And she moved to New York and she started a business in the 60s of these little tiny jeweled evening bags. So that tomato looking evening bag is actually a little clutch, the size of a real tomato. So there's a watermelon one, there's a peacock one. And these became very famous, like in the 1970s. I think of Nancy Reagan and that whole era. Women were collecting these madly. She was very successful making these Lieber bags. So she retired in 2005. And her husband built for her a museum to house all these extraordinary bags. And the museum looks like a modern day Renaissance temple. And it's set into a fairy tale garden. So it's quite extraordinary. It's a sort of an homage to all the work that she's done. But it's also very much about the two of them. They were married for 72 years. She was his muse. And they died in 2018, 5 hours apart. So it's really a love story, and he built this temple for her and for her work. So it's one of my favorite places in the book. It's extraordinary.
So, Jean, why did you choose this? There's things on the back wall. Are those paintings by Mrs. Lieber? Or?
Those are paintings by Gus. Her husband painted those, so he was also an artist. So yes.
Yeah, so of course, the museum is the Lieber collection, and I know it's mostly about the purses. I mean, you walk into the first room and it's just, I mean, basically floor to ceiling of purses and clutches and these like beautiful, extravagant little, I mean, works of art that women carried around, which is really cool. From an artistic standpoint. And then there's this other kind of ante room off the side where they have a few podiums of her clutches. And then on the walls are all of his artwork. So I wanted to showcase a little bit of both of them. I know it's mostly about the purses, but I wanted a little glimpse of, what's that on the wall? Maybe I'll have to go and see for myself.
When I give tours at the museum, I often ask people what's their favorite museum on the South Fork, and this one often comes up. I have not been there, so now I have to go.
Oh, it's so cool. No, this was the first time I didn't even know that there was a museum. Like I've lived out here my entire life, and thanks to Wendy and this book, I mean, I got to experience everything.
What a great assignment, really. I'm
Right?
jealous. Next one, Connor. Well, where are we now?
Okay, we're in Bridgehampton now. This is the Dan Flavin Museum, housed in a former Baptist church and firehouse. So Dan Flavin was an artist who worked in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and he worked with fluorescent light. So you have no idea when you look at these little doors what is waiting for you inside. And what you'll find on the second floor are 11 sort of environments, as it were, like little bays where he uses like rows of electrified lights and creates sort of these experiences. And you go from one to the next, sort of saffron bright light and neon green light. And it's this idea of the way light enters a space. And he's literally painting with light, if you can imagine it. It's run by the Dia Foundation. So they do extraordinary work, and they sort of maintain this. In my mind, it's an absolute artistic jewel on the East End. I take my friends there all the time, and people are blown away with what awaits them inside. It's extraordinary.
What's funny about this photograph is that it is about light, but Jean chose this. And the last slide we saw about the observatory, but looks more like a Dan Flavin than this.
Yeah.
But Dan Flavin, it always surprises me how people are still shocked by his work. I've had people come back from there, and some are actually angry. They go, "What is this?" And so Dan Flavin was 1960s, 1970s, and later maybe he was a pop artist. Is that true?
I think maybe he's like a post-pop. He's a little bit past
Post-pop?
that. Yeah.
It's amazing that he still shocks people and makes people angry, and I love his work. So I'm glad you highlighted this.
Yeah.
What's the
one of my
next
favorites.
one?
So this is the Thomas Moran studio in East Hampton. Thomas Moran was a gentleman painter, if there ever was one. This is an 1884 Queen Anne style atelier. And Moran was known for his paintings of Yellowstone and the Rocky Mountains. He sort of had this cinematic, big, bold style. And this was really the first atelier that was established in the Hamptons and set the tone for the artistic sort of endeavors and legacy of the East End. And it's an extraordinary environment. I mean, he was a scavenger with little architectural elements. He'd find, abandoned pilasters or newel posts or glass doors from other sort of torn down buildings. And he'd sort of put them higgledy-piggledy here and there and created this extraordinary, really one-of-a-kind environment. He wanted to be very much inspired by his surroundings. And Tom, my favorite story about Thomas Moran is he bought a gondola in Italy and he brought it back to East Hampton. And he would put it in Hook Pond, right in the middle of that pond where the swans are when you drive into East Hampton. And he would have his relatives be the gondoliers and they just sort through the pond. Now that's we need to recreate this, don't you think?
That's funny you should mention that, because there was a woman, her last name was Betts, Betts, who had a gondola on Lake Agawam. Later, I wonder if she got the idea from Thomas Moran.
Wow.
She used to get in her gondola from her mansion on Lake Agawam and take it all the way to Dune Church, like not that far away, just to arrive at church in a great presence, kind of like a queen. So, but it was
how
later.
I want to live my life.
In a gondola.
No, arriving to church in a gondola. I mean, come
Yes.
on, don't get any more baller than that.
Right. That's great. So what's great about historic house museums is seeing details about how people lived. Thomas Moran was a great painter. And he's beautiful work, but isn't it great to see personal artifacts that he might have used or surrounded himself? It's such a personal touch.
Exactly. That's what I loved about it too, Tom. Absolutely. You taught me that. It's always this idea with history. It's this human element that connects us in this very real way that you never forget. And that's really important.
Yeah, Jean captured an experiential element in the story of Thomas Moran. So let's go to the next one.
So this is our last one. We thought we'd end on an up note. This is the Big Duck in Flanders. It's 20 feet tall. It was built in the 1930s by a duck farmer who wanted to sort of support his business. The story that I discovered when I was researching this is that you can kind of see one of the wings there. It was built by some Broadway set designers in the 30s. And mid-project, one of the designers got in a car accident. So they had to take one of those wings and copy it and then flip it the other way to make the right wing the left wing. The lights are of Model Ts. And Connor, who's there with the Southampton History Museum, he grew up near there, and he was telling us that at night, when you drive by it, the lights are kind of red in his eyes and kind of eerie, sort of an eerie glow, and he looks a little crazy and menacing. I've never seen it at night, but now I have to drive by to see this.
It's so iconic. I grew up in Ohio, and I went to college, and I took an architecture class in the 1970s, and this was in my book. There was I think it was Venturi, the architect, I can't remember his first name.
Exactly.
He wrote a book on vernacular architecture that was part of my architecture class. So I saw this book, and then you can imagine my shock, because how many of these are there in the world? Only one, I'm sure. You can imagine my shock driving on Flanders Road for the first time and then seeing it. And knowing what it was, but I didn't know about the wings. That's interesting. So let's wrap this up. Wendy, Jean, you both have fine art backgrounds. Wendy, you wrote another book, 111 Museums in New York City. I can't wait to get that one. Jean, you're a photographer for hire, and I hope you get a lot of work because you're very, very talented.
Thank you.
Wendy, what's your next book?
I don't know. I'm thinking of maybe doing something on Paris and decorative arts. I was reading it in March, and then I had to flee because of COVID. So I got stopped mid-project, but I'm sort of percolating an idea there. So we'll see what happens. We're all pivoting, aren't we, right now?
Yeah. So this will be your own book. It won't be part of the series of 111.
I don't know. I haven't quite fleshed it out, but there's some kind of an idea with Paris and decorative arts. So we'll see.
Yeah, 111 museums in Paris.
Yeah.
And Jean has to go photograph it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm game for that.
Connor, do we have any questions? Connor.
Yep. So let's see. So everybody that is watching right now, at the bottom of your toolbar, there should be a Q&A button. If you do have any questions about anything that was shown already, anything maybe that is also mentioned in the book, or something that you just might have a question on that might be in the book, feel free to submit them. You can just submit them there, or also in the chat function. Both of those you can go through. But let's see.
This is the perfect gift. I need a box just personally for myself for the holidays. I have to get a box. So.
Yeah, it's really a great gift. It's really a great gift. It's available at all the local bookstores. We have such gorgeous, fantastic, soulful local bookstores on the East End. Hildreth's has been a big supporter. They've been selling it as well. So yes, it's really a great gift.
It's a perfect size too. It's something you can put in your glove compartment. It's only $20 and it's just chock full. I can't recommend it enough.
Thank you. I tried to write it. Go ahead.
I'll say the first question that we had was, how do we get the book? And so you were all basically just answering that. But is there anywhere specifically that you would recommend to purchase the book?
Well, I think the local bookstores, if you're out on the East End, they've been very supportive of it and behind it. Again, Hildreth's has it, but it's also available, anywhere you buy your books. It's pretty widely available. So you shouldn't have a problem finding it.
Herrick Hardware has it too.
Herrick Hardware has it in downtown Southampton, yes.
Somebody is asking, was it difficult to whittle down to just 111 places?
It was challenging, and we decided to do sort of categories: experiences, nature walks, historic sites, museums, and then we also wanted to have equal in terms of geography. So those were sort of our guiding principles. And it was difficult, but I was really looking for not the new and glitzy places, but the soulful places that really reveal the character of the East End. And I often found that if there was a place I went to and I couldn't wait to tell my friends about, that's the one I wanted to include. It's sort of like I'm taking a friend along. Jean and I are taking friends along in this book on a tour of our favorite spots on the East End. That's sort of the philosophy behind it.
Well, you mentioned Paris, and on the North Fork, there's now 60 tasting rooms, and you picked the only one that my wife and I go back to, and that's Grotto.
Exactly.
And that's so not Parisian, I guess Provence, outside Paris, France. But that's great discovery. I shouldn't mention it. I take it back. I don't. Nobody go there.
Okay. It's so charming, and all they do is rosé,
I
24/7, all
know.
different shades of rosé. So it's a really
Rosé
great
all day.
concept. Rosé all day, literally and figuratively. And the grounds are so completely charming. You do feel it's quite Provençal. So you kind of step through the lobby into this sort of secret garden, and it's an extraordinary place.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, if there's no other questions, I want to thank Jean and Wendy so much for this beautifully photographed, and the narrative is amazing. Thank you both for making this, and thank you for making my holiday shopping easy.
Thanks,
The-
Tom.
Tom-
A delight.
There were actually some more questions that we had. One was, what was the biggest surprise you had during your exploration?
The biggest surprise I had, I think, I'm not sure if surprise is the right word, but maybe one of the most exciting elements for me was to really in-depth explore the North Fork. I found such exciting places there. And I'm very much in favor of, as I was explaining to Tom beforehand, cross-pollinating. I think people stay in their own fork and they don't kind of go back and forth. So that's really was a goal of mine, to try to get people from the South Fork to visit the North Fork and vice versa. So that was one of the best experiences, I think, of working on the book.
And then somebody was asking if you had an overflow of places that you didn't include, and if there was maybe one or two places that was really interesting.
Well, not so much an overflow, but what we are going to do with the book is we do sort of small press runs, and we're going to continually update it. So it's a living, breathing archive for the future. So if places were to close, we would then slowly add new places in over time. So the guidebook is always current and up to date. That's sort of our philosophy. I imagine most of them will stay, but little by little, as situations change and places might close, we'll start to slowly roll more of them in. So I'm always got my eyes open to new places. So that's exciting.
And then, is it only in paperback now?
Yes, it only came in paperback. That's the original philosophy. Just as Tom mentioned, the idea is to be able to throw it in your purse, throw it in your glove compartment, and have a really easiness of using it. So that's the idea behind the book. One photograph, one page for each of the 111 places. So very easy to use.
I want to add to that it's actually printed on very sturdy paper with a nice cover. So I didn't even think of this as a paperback. It's somewhere in between, though. It's very sturdy, and it has a map.
Yes. It has maps in the back that list all of the places. So if you're going to one place, the Lieber collection, you can look and see geographically what else might be nearby. And it's really an exquisite paper stock. It's a lovely artifact. Very important to my publisher to use very quality paper, quality images. And, as an art person myself, that's incredible. And I know Jean appreciated that. So it's really a beautiful book. We're really proud of it.
Great. And then the last thing that we have here is Penny from the library saying basically just thank you, and that the talk was great and that she loved all the photos too.
Thanks, Penny. Penny's been such a supporter as well. So thank you. And thank you for all you do at your exquisite library.
All right.
With a nice staircase.
Yeah. I'll say, and that was all the questions that we had there. So Tom, you can say thank you again.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Join us. What's our next program, Connor, on Thursday?
Let me double check. I believe we do have our next program actually, I think, is this Saturday, the canoe tour. And then we have next week we have two programs. On Monday, a program with the library, and then on Wednesday another program, the 19th Amendment and the fight for universal suffrage. So that one should be really great. And then that Thursday, another lecture about monarch butterflies. So we're staying busy.
We want to thank Penny Wright and the Rogers Memorial Library for co-sponsoring this. That they've been very important to us, getting out local history and the good news, like books like this. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Tom and Connor, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody. Bye.